Lovely.
See, she getting y'all hype. Give it up, give it up.
My name is Joelle Monique. You may recognize my face from shows like Nerdist and Screen Junkies and Collider, AfterBuzz. You might know some of my writers for The Hollywood Reporter and Playboy and a bunch of other cool stuff. The catcalling always surprises me. It's just writing. Their articles are good. They don't even do the nude stuff anymore. But today we're here to talk about the late, great Stan Lee, the best, the baddest. We're just waiting for a couple more panelists before we kick gear into everything. But I'm going to lay out a couple of just some ground rules. Okay? One, when we're asking questions, we're going to be respectful of people's space and time. When we ask questions, we're going to ask questions. I'll say it again. We're going to ask questions. Not going to tell long stories. No. I appreciate your example. Way to lead, way to show them how it's done.
That was you?
But mostly we're going to have fun and remember a really cool dude who gave us like an amazing universe that we could hang out in all the GD time. I'm going to mind my language. It's late. Please forgive me if I slip. But yeah, give us like, we'll give 2 or 3 more minutes and then we'll get started and people will filter in as they can. Thanks, guys.
Are there any kids up in here? I just wanted to know if any kids up in here.
There are some,
present.
yes.
Okay, I
yes.
just want. I'm like Wu-Tang. I'm for the children. I love
Wu-Tang for the children,
You know what I
man.
mean? Wu-Tang for the children. You know what I mean? We love the babies. I just want to be aware because if my tongue slip, I want to know. Like, censor that. You know what I mean? So
That's such a great old reference. Like, I don't know how many people get that, but
old reference. Wu-Tang is forever.
yeah.
Come on now.
Sure. Wu-Tang is old.
They just got
I
a
don't
district
know.
in New York now. Come on now. You know,
They did.
it's real if they got it on the sign.
You're going to be so much fun. I'm really looking
You
forward
know
to
this. Come on now. Sesame Street and Wu-Tang. Boom,
We're going to
boom.
try to keep it Stanley PG is how I'm going to reference it. So, including in your questions if you can. Thanks.
That was a reference from the 1997
Hey
Grammys,
man,
bro.
hey man.
That's awesome.
I know. Old Dirty, let you know.
That's awesome. I bought me a suit that costed me a lot of money today.
Woo! You may think.
Puff Daddy is good.
You know what I mean?
But
Wu-Tang is
the
for
best.
for the babies, for the children. And they let you, and they've been true to it ever since.
They
So
have
ain't no
been.
doubting. Wu-Tang? Who? What?
Wu-Tang
No,
for the
they
children,
told you what they about,
They
homie.
did.
Don't get brand new.
They did.
Be with them.
Since I feel like we're going to be having a lot of segues, while we wait, do you guys want to introduce yourselves to the crowd? Tell them who you
Oh,
are.
I can do it early. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, use the mic. Let them know
okay?
what's good. Who are you? What do you do? Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Now, what's up, y'all? Hello, my name is JJ Kirby, or Javon Kirby, if you know me by Javon, or JJ, if you know me by JJ. You can call me Ray Ray, or JJ, whatever, you know. But I'm a comic book artist that's been in the industry since 1995. I'm here to let you know that dreams come true. And I wasn't come here for that, but I'm letting you know that dreams do come true because how I got into the industry was some dream wishing stuff. I always wanted to be next to Jim Lee and be able to get love and be able to draw in my own style without biting his style and still get love and respect from peoples and everything. And I was like, I'm just this kid, this little black kid from Ohio in my parents' basement drawing comic books. How am I gonna get to California? How am I gonna do this? But back in the day, they had the scenario where they had art contests or talent searches in the back of the comic books every now and then.
Yes.
And so you remember, so it's just like they would put them out, and me being me, not believing in myself, I wouldn't send anything. I was like, somebody else is probably better than me. You know, I don't deserve it or whatever. Not that I did anything wrong or slave mentality.
Inherent guilt, yes.
Yeah, we'll just chalk it up like that. Slave mentality, inherent guilt, whatever. Whole shackles, self-shackles. And then one year I had my homie and my comic shop lady say, you know, excuse the language, but you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Meaning, you know, you're in the same spot where you at. You're either gonna make a move or you're not. Get off the potty or, you know, do what you gotta do. Basically.
Stanley PG,
You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you know, I said potty.
You did. You
I said potty.
It's good.
And so I had to make a decision within myself. So I was like, man, I am capable because I make sure that when I'm drawing pictures, I love this stuff. Nothing else tells me I need to be in that area except for drawing comic books. I need to draw, and so for me, it was that or nothing. I wasn't seeing myself at a factory. I wasn't seeing myself working for doing anything else like that, you know. So then I sent my submissions in one year because my comic shop lady, my dude was like, you don't do it or not? And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it.
I love the comic book community.
I know, right? And so I sent it in. This is before internet, computer, and everything. And it was just like, you know, you have to have an answer machine at the crib, or your mama gonna pick up the phone, or you're gonna get that message or not, you know. And so the situation happened where a month or so went by and I didn't hear anything, and I was discouraged. I was like, man, what's up? They didn't like my stuff? I didn't get mad. I just like, you know what, screw this. But I guess they didn't like my flavor, so I'll try some other shots. Let me try Extreme, you know, like, you know, let me try Top Calorie. Problem I did was send my same submissions I did for Wildstorm to Top Cal. And they're like, we don't want to see Wildstorm characters, we want to see our characters. Lesson learned. If you're going to be sending samples to somebody, send them samples of their stuff in your style. Big lesson, right? So then it's just like, I was like, well, let me draw some totally original stuff for Extreme, because I felt Extreme was like, no, that ain't what I wanted, but I need to get in there somehow. And so I was like, let me do this Extreme stuff. I did new stuff, and I was like, I'm serving y'all fire. I'm about to cook. Y'all gonna get this barbecue. And so before I got finished with it and sent it in, I got a call from Jim Lee. Here, let me tell the story. Okay. So imagine I'm at the crib, I'm just chilling, and I'm like, you know, just chilling, you know. And then like my sister's like, yo, JJ, telephone. I'm like, who this? You know, whatever. Who this? So I pick up the phone. I'm like, who this? You know, what's going on? What's good? You know. And then he's like, you know, yeah. And now trust me, this is before the internet. I didn't know what he looked like. I'm from Ohio. We got black and white, and that's it. Filipino, I thought it was a pepper. Before I came to California, I had no clue. For real though, being 100, I had no clue. So Jim Lee on the phone talking, he sounded like some white guy to me instead of like Jim Lee. Or I just didn't know. I thought Jim Lee was like the son of Stan Lee or something. You know what I mean? I didn't know. And then he was like, well, this is Jim Lee. And I was just like, who? This is Jim Lee. And I was like, literally, it went like this. Who? This is Jim. I was like, come on, Lance. Come on. Boogie, you messing with me, homie. You know, come on, people. Just quit playing with me. He's like, no, this is Jim Lee. And I had a solid minute, 2 minutes of, oh shit, Like, how would you react if somebody you was aiming at, somebody that's like up there, calling you at your crib saying, hey, what's up, homie? I got my eye on you.
Not only that, you were talking to the most powerful Asian in comics, dude.
You know what's up?
Asian man in comic books.
You know what's up?
I love that.
And so I was sitting there like freaking out, like, oh my God. And then once I finally kind of like, okay, calm down. It's just Jim Lee. I was like, man, you Jim Lee? What the? You can save me. You can save a brother. Hold on now, what's going on? And he's like, well, we sent everybody else responses to their submissions, but we didn't hear anything from you. I was like, well, I didn't hear anything from you. He's like, it's been about a month. I was like, I know. I didn't hear nothing. Y'all sent something to me? I didn't get nothing. I'm like, what's this? He's like, well, we like what you have going down so much that we're like, you know what, we're going to waive some things. So they said, people who were, you know, picked for, you know, submission, they were like, we want you to send some sample scripts. We got this 5-page sample script of some stuff just to retest y'all to make sure you can get through the hurdle of the hoop of getting here and you're worthy. But, you know, everybody else did theirs, but you didn't, there's no time. So we're going to just have you draw 2 pages and send it in to see what's going on. See if you're good. See if you can capture some of that magic you did on the first sample. So I'm like, I'm about to serve you some hotness. I'm about to come kill it. You don't understand. Jim Lee, I'm ready. Mama, I love you, but I'm about to go kill it. Boom. You know? And so I was working at Taco Bell at the time. They knew they couldn't control me at that moment. I'm at the counter serving tacos and drawing submissions. You couldn't stop me. You have to have that type of passion. And I was in that zone at that time where I was like, I believe in me. And I never really tried to spend, I would say, for people who know, there's moments when you say, I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to respect myself. And I'm going to be what I know I can be. And I don't care what people think. But I do care. But I know they're going to care because I'm about to serve them. You know what I mean? And so that's what it was. So I'm serving these pages, I'm hooking them up like. Now, this was the kicker for me, and I didn't realize it until after the fact, where I'm like, all right, before the internet, before you can email or whatever, we had fax machines. And like Xerox copying was the hotness. You know what I mean? So you doing some color copies, that's hot back in the day. So I didn't have access like that. So all I had was a fax machine at what was it, what the local hardware or local store. They had a fax machine, I forgot the name of it. But I drew these samples, they just wanted pencils, and at that time I could pencil, ink, and color. I was so creative, and I'm still so super creative, but all they wanted was just the pencils, and I felt like you're putting me in a box. But for this, I will be in that box. So I did these samples, I did them all in pencil, super tight, did me some black and white color copies or whatever, you know, which is good, but the quality level goes down notches, okay? And since how am I gonna get it to it, like, you know what, we ain't got time to be mailing, because this is back in the day.
Sure.
Fax that to us. So I'm faxing Xerox copies of pencils to Jim Lee to try to get work at Wildstorm.
Yikes.
And I'm like, and I don't know how that looks on the other end of the receiver.
No.
I don't know. I'm thinking it's just as quality as I'm sending it to him. He gonna get this work. Thank God. He saw it, he loved it, he liked it, they liked I ain't even gonna say loved it, liked it. That's too much credit right there. He was cool with it, was like, you know what, there's this new cartoony style coming in the comics. You got this like graffiti, you know, urban type style going in with, you know, I can utilize that up in here. You got a spot, I can bring you here. I was like, what? I'm here? Woo! I had to shimmy and shake. I couldn't call it. It was too much for me.
This is an amazing introduction.
I know. I didn't mean to be long-winded. I didn't mean to be long-winded either. I'm just holding out to everybody to get up in here. But it's just like, but like I said, imagine, like I said, dreams come true. So for me to be able to get a ticket to Wildstorm from Jim Lee, calling me at the crib at the middle of the night, and it's like it could have been a situation where I wasn't home. The answering machine was full, or we didn't have one, or whatever. I could have missed that, and I would never be here.
Because of the internet, the kids will never know.
They won't know,
Y'all
but it's
are
okay.
so lucky.
Because the long-winded brothers like me talking like this, they got a clue now. It's okay, it's okay. And so,
Inform them. Yes.
I'm trying. So like I said, when it's all like I said, the deal was this, because I was scared of California. I'm from Ohio, and I was not trying to go anywhere. Everything I needed was in Dayton, Ohio. My family, my friends, my local comic shop, the mall, whatever, everything. Why am I going anywhere? And at that time, there was like West Coast, NWA, earthquakes, in the Superman movie where he spins around backwards and saves Lois from the
Straight out of
earthquake.
Compton,
You
straight
know
out
what I
of
mean?
Compton.
So a brother like me was like, I'm not trying to go to Cali because they got gangs and earthquakes, and I'm not trying to hear that. And New York was rude people and dirt everywhere, so I'm not dealing with that. I'm just staying in Ohio. But because of this, it made me get out of my shell and have to take this chance and go out there. So I didn't know anything about California. My stepmom was like, let me do the knowledge. Oh, they're gonna send you to La Jolla. That's real right there. That's that rich stuff. That's nice. So I was like, I'm thinking it's all Cali. So they put me on a plane. They fly me to La Jolla. They put me in an apartment. And they paid me to be an intern with other artists, part of the internship, and to be the future of comics for Wildstorm and everything. And so it was like I said, dreams coming true. And so all right, so imagine I'm at Wildstorm. And then I get my first taste of like comic life, comic book life, people, this is the industry. I made it out of Dayton, Ohio, and Georgia. I'm like from the country, so I made it out of there, and I'm making it happen now, you know what I mean? And I'm making it happen, and they're giving me a chance and opportunity, so I'm like, wow, what can I do with this? So given a chance, they still wanted me just to pencil though. That hurt me, but I was like, I'm gonna play this part. Because then I had to realize, well, there are other people who got jobs too. There are inkers, there are colorists, there are other people on the cut. You can't hog it all yourself. Now, you can do it if you can, and you may get the chance to do it, but it's like, you gotta play your part, player. And I had to learn that. And in life, you gotta play your part, player. You don't need 3 Wolverines on X-Men.
We are gonna pause this right
Okay,
here.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna bring you right back in because
Okay,
this tracks with Stan Lee's story, and I'm gonna be interested to hear your take on
I'll
that.
tell you my stance.
But guys, we're going down the line. We're introducing ourselves, how we got into comics. Give us your name. Tell us what you do.
Sure. I'm Jimmy Palmiotti, and I write and draw and do all that kind of stuff.
Give us some titles,
So
Jimmy.
modest. right
Yeah, Harley Quinn. I've been doing with my wife for the past 5 years, and
Yes.
worked on Jonah Hex for a couple of years.
Tell them where you are.
Marvel Knights.
Tell it.
Did Marvel Knights with Joe Quesada way back when, doing Daredevil and Punisher and A lot of stuff. Event Comics, Ash, Painkiller
Ash,
Jane.
say it right.
Right, I'm just gonna give my.
You know, I got it in front. Like sitting next to this man right here is the bomb too, because I remember when him and his homies, Casada,
Yep.
was doing Ash and was like self-publishing on the tip, but it's like the fact that you've been doing it that long, that strong, you're still doing it in a position where you are just, in a position to do what you do, and the love that you have for it, man, I just want to say thank you for doing what you do. Can I give you that?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
You know
Thank
what I
you so
mean?
much. Hey, look,
No, for real. Like I said, do the knowledge.
this is not a career that you take on if you don't love what you're doing.
No.
Because you don't last, and once you get paid, you realize that,
Yeah.
that you go, okay, I have to love this, because there ain't no other way I want to do this. But yeah, I've been doing comics since, since high school. I went to the High School of Art and Design in New York, where all the group people are.
Yeah.
And then I actually, when I was in 10th and 11th grade, I was doing backgrounds for other artists. I worked with Chick Stone, I worked with Dave Simons, and a bunch of guys. And I was like the kid in school that they would drag in and say, hey, can you finish this book? Because we're going to go out to eat. And they would drop me off a bunch of pages.
Pay them dues.
And when I was doing that, I realized, I saw how they lived, and I said, I got to get into advertising. So I left comics, and it wasn't until I was 30 years old that I said, let me get back into comics again. And my high school buddy was Mark Texera, was drawing Punisher and Ghost Rider.
Do the knowledge.
2 books a month. And
knowledge.
he came by and he said, I really need help. Can you help me out? And I said, I'll help you draw these pages if we do it up in the Marvel offices. So I had a 9-to-5 job, and then at 6 o'clock I'd go up to Marvel, and I'd be there all night. And every week I went up there, I went to each editor and left a pack of samples on their desks, inking samples.
Finesse it,
That's how you
Jimmy, finesse it. I love that.
Do the
story.
knowledge. He is
Yeah.
telling you game right now.
Yeah, and
Like, for
so
real.
I didn't, what I learned from advertising is how to leave the room, or how to end your conversation and move on.
Boom.
Because some people don't. And how I did really well at Marvel was every book that came in late, they'd say, oh, Jimmy, I saw Jimmy in the hall. Get Jimmy to do that. So all of a sudden I was inking like 2 books a month up at Marvel. And at the same time, I met a buddy, Joe Casada, and we said, well, we look at Image guys are doing their own comics. We could do that. How hard is that to do? And we saved our money, and then we did 2 books. We did Ash and Painkiller Jane. We self-published. We did pretty well with those. Actually, we sold Ash to DreamWorks, and we decided not to do it ever again after that, because we were like, well, they own it now,
That
so
hurt my heart.
we
I
move
wish
on.
that hurt my heart.
I know, but one day we'll do it.
I hope so. I
But
love
Painkiller
Ash.
Jane I still do. So, and in the meantime, we'll talk about, I guess, Stan, because I have many
We're
Stan
gonna get
stories.
there, I promise.
Yes, I want to hear.
Let's
I
keep
want to hear
going
Mike's
down
sex
the-
origin. So I'm all about that. Okay.
Sir, name and what you do.
Say again? You
Say-
know, yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Mike Zack.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I agree. I'm doing the white version of it.
I'm being quiet about it.
I'm just being quiet.
I did some little scene books at Marvel. That's right. Captain America, Secret Wars, Punisher Limited Series, Craven's Last Time, and
You have
Popping
like
out in the
props.
audience.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love
People with
that.
cue
Yeah,
cards.
they know.
It's like a professional TV show. You have cards
I'll
coming
pay
in.
you. And, I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
Oh, no, yeah, well, I'm kind of done. I mean,
Mike
Yeah.
Zack,
That's
man.
some of the most iconic work at Marvel
Yeah.
and Exit.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Ming, tell us about yourself.
Oh, Sing Chen, I didn't create anything, but I'm a big pop culture nut, and I was on a TV show called Comic Book Man, and up until very recently, I was one of 2 Asians on AMC. One of them got his brains bashed in with a bat, and then the other one, we got canceled last season, so they have like no Asians on
Also
AMC.
devastating.
But we did have Stan on the show, not once but twice, which were very, very memorable experiences if you watch the show. Also, Stan once mistook me for Jim Lee. And, and I,
That's not racist.
yeah, if you're gonna be mistaken for someone, that's the guy to be mistaken for. So thank you guys for being here, for paying tribute to Stan
It's
with
the hype.
everybody else in the room.
Okay, now, I know those were some long introductions, but I wanted them to be, because it's important for us to realize who's up here talking about Stan Lee. If we're gonna talk about the greatest, I wanna talk to the greatest about the greatest. So that's what we're doing today. 70 years, Stan Lee built the structure of Marvel, and you could argue that it was, single-handedly would be the wrong word, but it came from the core of his soul, right? Like, he was the one jumping from desk to desk and making sure that the poses and the animation was right in the comics. He was the one bringing in all of the artists and curating the work. Like, it's Stan Lee's heartbeat that we follow. So I want you guys to talk to me about either the first time Stan Lee's work touched you, or the first time you interacted with Stan Lee and had like a really positive moment with
Can I
him.
talk about when Stan first touched me? Because I have that story. It's not what you guys are thinking. Horrible people. Horrible. It was a handshake, folks, all right? I don't know what you guys...
I got a story about when you touched me, though.
Okay.
I'll let you know, so, yeah. Go ahead, tell it.
All right, so I was working up at Marvel, and it was like now a couple of years in, and I didn't see Stan in the office. I never saw him. He was always up another floor, you know, because he had his office up there. So I never saw him. And it was like 2 years in, and I started inking a whole bunch of. I was inking a lot of books at that time.
What year is it?
It was I would say it's 1994.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden, I'm walking this one long hallway in Marvel, and I see all the way at the other end of the hallway, it's Stan Lee. And he's walking towards me, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, there's Stan Lee. Like, you know, I sighted Stan Lee, and he's walking right towards me, you know? And I'm like, okay, so what do I do? Do I keep walking towards him, or do I kind of move into one of the offices and, you know, accidentally stop by and visit an editor? I'm like, I don't know what to do, because that's Stan Lee. Like, so I'm like, that's like, oh my God. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll never meet him again, or I'll get fired soon, so let me actually go right up to him. Oh my God. And he shakes my hand, he goes, I really love what you're doing, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. He's ranting and raving. And I don't know what to say except thanks. And then he walks away, he walks like 10 steps away, and then he turns around and he comes back. And he goes, I bet you're wondering how I knew it was you. And I'm like, and he pulled out from his shirt a picture that he cut out of Wizard magazine of me. And he said, I heard you were gonna be in the building, so I got this picture of Wizard magazine so I know what you look like, so I can come say hi to you.
Wow.
Just like that.
Wow. That's a big up right there. That's a big up.
Now, anybody else doing that, I would have been creeped out, you know, totally creeped out. But it was Stan, you know, and I was like, oh my God. He goes, do you want the picture? I'm like, no, I got one. Thank you, you know. And that was, I have many, many stories, but that was the first
That
time.
was a picture from Stan of you, though. That could have meant something.
I have pictures of me and Stan. But that was like the first time I met him, and he did his homework, right?
Yeah.
'Cause he knew I was going to be in the building that day. And that shows something,
He
you know.
cared. He cared.
Yeah,
He
it was
cared.
really
He cared. He was intricately enticing all this stuff. Yeah, man. The first time I met Stan, or how I met Stan, I have a story where Stan touched me now. Okay?
All
right. so no, what it was Comic-Con, not too long ago. I would say like maybe I forgot how many years ago, but I have a friend who takes photos of celebrities and fans together at the conventions. And so he came over, he comes over to the booth and hangs with me. We kick in and stuff. He's like, yo, man, I'm about to do a shoot with Stan. You want to go, take a picture with Stan? I was like, what? Stan Lee? For real? And they have lines of people waiting to take pictures. He's going to slide me in the back, something on me. I'm like, well, cool. I promise I won't take long. I promise I won't make a scene. I said, my God, yes. And so he's like, you got to be quick. I'm like, cool. So I get up in there, open the curtain, and there's Stan Lee sitting on the chair right there. And I was just like, that's Stan Lee. Now, me being J.J. Kirby, I always wish that Stan Lee and J.J. Kirby could work on something together because, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, and plus I just love Stan Lee. He's, you know what I mean? Just Stan Lee. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, you can see, or just, like for me, being an artistic person, I can see and feel the aura, the energy. I thought I saw it. It was just Stan. I was like, wow, Stan Lee. And I was just like, he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, Stan Lee, want to take a picture? And I was like, yes, yes, sir. Yeah, can I, right quick? Oh, man, big fan, love this and that. I'm J.J. Kirby. Man, thank you for everything you've done. just thank you so much. I can take a picture with you. He's like, yeah, get it in. And I was like, and I touched his back, and I was like, I touched Stan's back. And I was like, this is Stanley's back, and I'm trying to, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know what I'm expecting to feel. I don't know what. I was just like, I'm touching Stan Lee. I don't know if I'm wash his hand today. It's gonna be good, you know what I mean? And so we took the snapshot, and then hey, how you doing? And then snap, and it was good. And I was like, all right, I'm out, peace. And so my dude developed the picture. I put it on the wall, and that for me was just like, Stan, the man, Lee, and JJ Kirby finally got to meet and shake hands and say what's happening. And so then after that, I have another friend who, he was Stan's handler as he got older and everything. So he would follow Stan around at the conventions and do things. And he was also documenting him also.
Oh, wow.
So he was cameraman documenting Stan and everything. And he'd tell me how Stan was, when they hanging in, in the hotels and on he's like, man, Stan is always, if he can get a cat nap, brother gonna take that cat nap.
That's a smart person.
You know what I mean? But when he's on, he is on. For the age he is and who he is, I'm surprised he's not back flipping down the aisles and everything. They say when he's on, he's on. It's him. It's not playing a character. It's him. He is the man. He is the myth. He is what he is. And so I got the chance to be able to draw some pictures of Stan for his peoples. Because I do like Stan Lee pinups. And he would sign them and everything. For real. So they would hit me up to draw likenesses of Stan Lee. And I was saying like, man, I'm working with Stan Lee. Dreams come true. What the dealio? But I will say the weird thing that I discovered about Stan Lee was this. So as I'm trying to do research and reference and I want to draw a picture of Stan through the ages. Young Stan, middle-aged Stan, older Stan, or whatever. He does not look the same in any of his pictures.
No, he morphs.
He morphed. It's like, and I was asking people, they lived hard back in the day.
And no one harder than Stan. Stan started working at like 14. He was like pretty much running Marvel by 19 in the middle of World War II. Stan Lee always had his nose to the grindstone, make stuff happen. Mike, can you talk to us about the first time you met Stan Lee?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you first that I go back even pre-Marvel superheroes in my fan days, so when Marvel came along, it meant everything to me. I mean, Stan and Marvel finally made it hip for people to read comic books at high school level, at college level, and beyond. That was important to me because I was getting to those ages at the time.
You're talking about 60s era when Stan had the radio hour and stuff?
I don't remember when he had the radio hour. I was just enjoying the heck out of his comics and being totally influenced by him. I was, his greatest fan, I'm sure. It came to be, by 1975, I was starting to work in comics. But at that time, I was in a smaller company called Charlton Comics, doing like 8-page horror stories and things like that. So then I was invited to the 1975 Miami Beach Comic Convention, and also invited was Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Neil Adams. So, so I was going to meet all of these comics gods to me down there, and all these guys were very nice to me, but Stan was the nicest by far. He came up and I had like an 8-page story out on my table, and he just started gushing about it, the storytelling, the black and white balance, that it had in it, and I'm thinking, wow, this is he's so nice, he's that guy from Stan's Soapbox, that I would always read. I didn't really believe it. Just thought he was being like super nice to me, and then he shocked me. He actually got on the phone and called Marvel, and told the current editor-in-chief, like, I found this guy. He needs to work for Marvel. This guy's good. He needs to work for Marvel, and I couldn't believe it. He's like, that's when he became Marvel's greatest superhero, to me personally, for actually doing it. And, he totally meant it. Yeah, but here's the bad news. The editor-in-chief didn't care for my stuff. So still.
Who was it then?
Yeah, I do remember. Tell me later. That's all right. I mean, I don't blame him. And here's the difference. It was Mark Wolfman in his 5 minutes in the chair. But it just showed, I mean, you knew from Stan's history anyway that he knew how to pick talent. That was another one of his greatest powers. But I understood, Stan, my stuff was still raw, I think, but Stan had the ability to see it 2 years down the road. Marv didn't have that ability, I think. Nothing against Marv. I had to wait for Archie Goodwin to take the seat, and he started giving me work. Yeah. So that was 1975, and then, and again, Stan was, total god to me. So years later, working at Marvel, some guy who ran a educational books place, he had his own character called Solar Man, and I don't know how he ever did it, but he not only talked Marvel to publishing it, but he had his own ideas. He said, it's got to be written by Stan, and it's got to be drawn by Mike Zeck. Yeah, that's how he came in that way. How do you make it happen? I don't know, but I'm kind of glad he did, because it gave me a chance then to actually do a project with Stan. And that started out with, there were dinners, but that publisher guy, he was involved. There were other people always, so it wasn't me and Stan necessarily at those things, although I was happy to be in his presence. But there did come the time when he was, because even then he was West Coast. He wasn't really East Coast. He was in California. But he was over there. He was in a hotel, and we were to meet in his hotel room and go over the plot and things like that. So I was going to be one-on-one with Stan, which was great. And we went in, we discussed it, the usual things. But Stan's up on a pillar, for me, and I was happy to be there, but when we were kind of done, I figured, well, I better make my excuses. Stan doesn't want me hanging around in his hotel room, and I told him, all right, I need to go out, and I'm going to spend some of the day, gathering some reference and things like that, and kind of made my excuses to leave, and Stan says, well, you need some company?
He's trying to kick it with you.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks, I've got Stan up here, but he was just a guy, over in New York in a hotel room, and why would he want to be alone, just sitting in a hotel room doing nothing, and it's just like, what a dope, for not realizing it or something, and I said, yeah, put on your walking shoes, and let's go, and so that was the one day in my life that Stan and I were equals. We were a couple of freelancers going around New York, and from that time I met him in '75. I know he didn't BS me, and he seemed very interested, and I think he was. We were going in like a Japanese bookstore where there were a couple magazines that I get for gun reference, for Punisher and stuff. And he was very, very interested in, what lengths I went. To gather, like real good gun reference and things like that. So we just had a great time going from like reference store to reference store and things like that. So that was like the one day that Stan and I were sort of on an equal level. We were just a couple freelancers walking around New York, and of course a day later he was way back up on the pedestal. And then jump from '75 to 2015, 40 years later. Then Stan's doing the conventions, I'm back in conventions. And so I got to see him again after all this time, and had mixed feelings then. Got to talk to him one of those times a little bit, but it was complaints about his eyesight, complaints about his hearing. He can't drive anymore. The usual 90-year-old man story. The truth is, there's always the child within. We're all young people in aging bodies. So, I felt kind of bad for him at that point. I also felt kind of bad that he was out there kind of working hard, on these things. sitting him down in a stool for photos and sitting him over here, pointing at a book, you know, and having him sign it. You know, I just found myself wishing that he didn't necessarily have to do that, and I'm not sure that he had to, but.
I was just gonna ask, do you think you could have pulled Stanley away from that? It seems from a distance, from my perspective, that he always sort of wanted to be near the fans.
Well, that was my other thought, you know, that, again, why sit home alone, you know, if you can go out? And, I mean, I know that he was happy in the sense that he did like the limelight in a way, you know, these cameos and stuff were just like right up his, you know, perfect for just right up his alley. I know he enjoyed that stuff. And you know, in some ways, he was a much bigger celebrity at the end of his life. That even though he was a celebrity all his life, I think he peaked, you know, at near the end of his life too. So that's my like 40 years of Stan in 3 parts. You know, and I'm so glad I had those times too.
Absolutely, Stanley, always a rising star. Amazing. Ming, tell us about your first time meeting Stanley.
I became aware of Stan as a kid, reading my big stack of Marvel comics, Stanley Presents, Stan's Soapbox, and I think there was an internet search where I saw a naked picture of Stan with the comic book. But I think for me, he became like a real person when I saw a little movie called Mallrats.
Yes.
And, you know, which me and Jimmy, you know, is a big part of that as well, where, you know, he pops up in a cameo with Brody, and he gives them some very sage-like advice about, you know, even not all the comics in the world will equal one moment with the woman you love, and that really struck me. I was like, wow, this guy is deep, man. You know, he created all my favorite characters, but he's also like he's also a deep person as well. And when that popped up, I was like, well, and that was probably one of his first cameos, if I'm not mistaken. That
I think so.
And leave it up to Kevin to kind of launch his whole career of movie cameos.
Yeah, and then for one of his last to be in Captain Marvel holding the script for Mallrats.
Yeah, which it came full circle. So
That was full circle.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really amazing. But in 2012, our second season of Comic Book Men, they're like, hey, Stan's going to come in for a charity photo shoot, and we're going to include him on the TV show. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, he's coming to our little comic book shop in Red Bank. And I know it's Kevin's comic shop, but to us, it's, you know, it's where we worked. And so I'm like, all right, well, what's the play here? They're like, all right, he's going to pull up in a limo. He's going to get out. You're going to be the first one to introduce him at the door and introduce him. And I'm like, I'm nervous.
Yes.
You know, it's the man. So he pulls up, the door opens, and like he's backlit, so it's like God walking in through. And I'm just like, hi, great to meet you, sir. You know, everybody's back here right this way. And that kind of kicked off a 4-hour experience that we got to have with him, which was cool because hopefully, has anyone met Stan at a Comic-Con? I've been lucky enough.
Raise them hands, y'all.
Yeah.
Yes,
Represented.
lucky you,
Yes.
fortunate.
I'm glad you got that experience because you know, it's one I wish everybody could have had. But you know, at a con, you got maybe 2 minutes with him, you know, because they had to get everybody through the line. And while that's pretty awesome, you know, we got a full 4 hours with him. So we threw every dumb question, which he answered graciously. You know, who would win in a fight? Just all the dumb questions we asked him. And then we were like, hey, Mr. Lee, would you mind signing 1 or 2 things? And of course, that turned into a stack of like 200. But he graciously he answered all the dumb questions. He signed everything we put in front of him, and it was a great day, and that was pretty cool. And then he came back again. We asked him to come back again when a very long-time customer of ours had lost his love for comics, and we added it up. He spent thousands at the store, so we didn't want to lose him. So I was like, well, how can we keep him? I was like, let's bring Stan in to surprise him and maybe rekindle his love. And of course it worked. I mean, you can't have Stan tell you to not lose your love for comics, and so
Walk away from it.
yeah, he's back and he's spending more than ever. So it's if you want to increase, I don't know if anybody owns a store, if we have any vendors here, if you want to increase revenue and get more customers, you know, get a legend in to help out with that.
What I love hearing about all of these stories, we've met Stanley as a comic book shop worker, as an aspiring artist, as somebody who's been working in comics, as somebody who's just at a convention, and it sounds to me like Lee treated everybody in exactly the same manner. He came as himself and met people as they were. And I think to Mike's point about being like, gosh, I'm in a room with a legend and I should excuse myself, I think the most legends would have just allowed you to. Would have been like, and great, now I can relax and be myself. But Stan never had to step out of that. He just always came as he was, and I think that that's kind of what all of us as fans have claimed to, have connected to. It's why we love seeing him in the Marvel movies, because it's just dorky Stan who has stars in his eyes and you know, wants to bring the thing he loves to all of us. So Mike, as a person who has worked kind of closely with Stan, what's it like to take notes from Stan Lee? What's it like to get notes, to talk about and tweak things with him?
Work intimately with him.
You mean like in the meeting or?
Yeah, like as you guys are working on a comic together, and I've listened to a lot of other artists talk about what it was like, especially in the earlier days, Stan being very animated, very dictatorial about how he wanted each frame to look, or panel, excuse me. So I want to hear from you.
I don't think he was ever necessarily that, because another thing I give to Stan is he did it out of necessity, but he invented the plot method because he had so many things to write, and he surrounded himself with very, very competent artists, so he could do that. And even though it was out of necessity, what he did was he actually figured out how to make comics better. In my mind, and I think that's why Marvel Comics took off and why they were better, because there was more really input from the artist, not only into the story, but that gave them the control over the page to page and the panel to panel flow, and truthfully, I think pencils, going back to a writer, the writer can see the actors, he can see what's happening on the page, he can see how well you told the story, and he can write less if he needs to. So that was, even though he did it out of necessity, it was kind of genius. And I'm very glad he did it, because my whole time at Marvel, I would never work full script, and the writers that I worked with wouldn't dream to give me a full script either. But here's the sad thing, is that now there is no more Marvel method in Marvel, from my understanding.
They still do. So once in a while, they'll say, you can notice that would find these artists that didn't need it so much, and then he actually got the extra thing. So there's certain artists in this business that you give them the job and then they add something to it. And then there's others that just follow it down to the word. And so what happened was, we called it, it was Marvel House Style. I drew an issue of Namor. It was a paragraph I got from the writer.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what happens, this, that. It was one of my first books I drew, so it was the most intimidating thing, because I'm like, okay, but in this scene, is Namor upset? Or is he happy to hear this news? Or I need some direction here, And so it was a different house style. Marvel house style in DC was full script all the time.
Right.
But it really came down to the artist, and Stan was great at, like he pulled Zek right out of the show and said, yeah, this is a guy that knows what he's doing, let him go crazy. And with Stan and with Steve Ditko, and look at the artists they had back then, you can do that, because they would bring something extra to the page, but not everybody can. Honestly, I think it's a lost art in a way, and that's why full script is the key.
Yeah.
I want to say one other quick story. I went to a party. I'm not going to say where or who, whatever. I went to a party, and I went up the stairs, and it was like a Hollywood party, and it was like really rocking, all celebrities and everything. And I turned the staircase, and Stan Lee is on this like white couch with Lucy Lawless hanging out with a drink. I swear to God. And I'm like, that's my hero over there. I'm like, that's the man. I have to mention that. I have to mention that because the celebrities love Stan.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was the craziest. Like, celebrities would come out of the woodwork. I don't care what was going on in that party, who was there, Denzel, it doesn't matter any of that. Stan Lee came in, everybody's like, oh, that's Stan Lee. Holy shit, I gotta go talk to that guy.
Creator of
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Oh, Wesley Snipes, ran boom, right to Stan. Those guys,
Yeah.
Stan was their hero.
That's what happens when you create people's childhood.
Yes, it's true,
How they
it's
connect
true.
to it. So on that note then, I'm going to ask one more question, then I'll turn it over to you for Q&A. Remember, we're asking questions.
Yeah. I have a question too.
We will ask the question in a second, but first I want to know, which Stan Lee character has had the most impact on either your work or your life?
you talking about when you say character, not what he,
Like one of Stan's creations that
Yeah.
inspired you the most?
Mhm.
And, you know,
one that he created?
Yeah,
Well, probably Spider-Man. Yeah.
yeah, we're all here. What specifically about Peter Parker speaks to you?
Well, what everyone talks about, you know, he suddenly brought human beings, you know, into comics that had weaknesses as well as strengths. I mean, that, you know, the whole, you never got that kind of soap opera aspect of these heroes before, and you know, and I always talk about the early days and the later days. I mean, you know, things, you know, people got married, people died, people had problems, but I remember it took about 1 year for Aunt May to keep talking about this girl she wanted to fix Peter Parker up with, and she, you know, but Mary Jane didn't show up for like a year, you know. Later, when everybody was trying to copy what Stanley was doing, you know, some of this stuff was happening in the course of an issue, you know, what would take years before. It was all happening too fast. Yeah, I mean, at that time in his creations, Spider-Man was my favorite, I'm sure. I mean, and you know, I was actually 12 in 1961 when Fantastic Four came up, so I was like the perfect fan year, you know, 12-year-old. And then I always say I was born at the right time, because what a time to, you know, be that perfect solid fan age, and then have Marvel show up, Spider-Man and all these characters. That was just crazy, and it also gave me the opportunity to kind of be there and watch all the fandom evolve from, you know, really from Marvel Comics, the fanzines and the early days of the comic conventions, and that was a great thing to be around, watch that grow.
Very cool. Main favorite character?
I'm with you. I gotta go with Spider-Man. I relate so much to Peter Parker as kind of the invisible, beat-down high school kid who, you know, I wasn't the cool kid, who suddenly, I was like, well, you know, I'm trying to get bitten by spiders and it's not doing anything. You know, and he becomes this hero, but he's still a wisecracker, and he's still himself, even when he's fighting crime, and he's got this overbearing boss. He's not making any money, but he's got this drive that, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. He's still this responsibility to save people. I really related to that, and yeah, I mean, it really touched me and set me off on this huge comic fandom for sure.
It's hard to think the spider. Jimmy?
Yeah, for me it's Fantastic Four.
Yes.
I'm Italian, I have a lot of brothers, we fight in the house all the time, everything's out of control in the house and everything. And I used to love reading FF when the Thing and Johnny would be fighting and ripping the place apart, and I'd be like, yeah, we do that at our house too. It's okay. But it was like a family in comics, which was something I didn't see. You know, it's like a whole family with superpowers. And yeah, it just connected with me. I remember my goal, because I started collecting maybe when issue like 110 came out, you know, and my goal was to get every issue, back issue, and I remember going to every comic shop in the New York area
Yes.
and finding each one, and I got number one for $60.
Yes, Jimmy.
But I sold it when I was 17 and got a car.
No.
And started dating girls.
Responsibility.
And thank you, Stan and Jack, for the wonderful times I had in my car. Because it was worth every dime, and I could go read a reprint of FF #1 right now, anytime, you know. But there's a time for comics, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, girls.
We never
And
stop
then
with the
it was-
comics,
yeah,
ever.
And then I go back to the comics.
The Thing was my favorite Stan Lee creation. He's the first superhero I read who was uncomfortable in his skin, and I identified so wholeheartedly with that experience of just constantly feeling othered and constantly, you can't hide who you are. I think he's beautiful. He's amazing. JJ, favorite Stan Lee comic book character?
Jesus. Yeah, he didn't create Jesus, you know.
Give him time.
Give him time.
Give him time. He's probably talking to him right now.
Right.
You know what you need to do
Right,
right
you
here.
need to do, yeah, right? I don't really have a favorite Stan Lee character that he created. There was things that I was like, for me, about this scenario or whatever, is that like, like doing the knowledge and finding out who he was and how he got down. Like, I thought it was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and I was like, all right, for me, that's the collab. And so to be able to find somebody you can play your part with and just make amazing things, create universes and share universes and make characters, the ability to do that I loved that. You know what I mean? And then I also thought it was like, well, it's Jack and Stan, but Stan came up with it. Like, no, actually, not to take credit away, Jack came up with a lot of that stuff, and Stan would help spin it and make it dope, make it fresh, make it eloquent, make it poetry. And so to have that ability to be able to do that, but share, to be able to get angry with each other and excited and just collaborate, is for me to come up with these characters. That's to make the Marvel Universe as an entity itself is what I enjoy. That's what it is for me.
He really set the tone.
Set the tone. They had swag.
I mean, there was
Characters were swag.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Batman show prior, but after that, it was Lee making the Spider-Man cartoon and the Spider-Man show, which was not so great, but was still there. He was trying things. He
Now,
was legendary thinking ahead of that.
Now, I will say, don't get me wrong, though, just like them, I find myself loving Peter Parker. He is the heart of the Marvel Universe.
Love Peter.
It's like, they're the period in Marvel comics, like Spider-Man, it ain't sound like it's supposed to, or people like Spider-Man when they changing his costume, trying to figure out what to do with him and stuff, and I'm like, he is the heart of this. When he died in the movies, brother man juiced up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I
I'm
feel you.
feeling it. And then when they brought him, they brought him back, and then, I ain't trying to spoil, I'm sorry, I don't know who saw what.
I didn't see it.
I'm sorry, you're at a comic book convention.
Forgive
It's
a brother.
been a whole month.
You know what I mean?
okay?
Forgive a
We're
brother.
past spoilers.
But
I would have
like,
never thought
you
they
know
would have
what I
brought
mean?
him back.
I know, but like I said, it's just that Peter, to be able to create a character that can make you choose him,
Yeah.
be down with him, understand his plight. It's like, not everybody can create characters like that. Create characters that you see yourself in. Stan could do that at the drop of a dime so easily. He had the formula, he had the magic science and knew what was up and was just like, I love doing this. This is what I do, and you can get some too. And it's just like, thank you.
He was the man.
Yeah.
With that, we've got time for maybe 2 questions.
Oh, sorry.
No, we gotta wrap it up. I'm so sorry, guys. We're getting the high signal. We gotta wrap it up. I'm so sorry. No, they're telling me no. We gotta clear out. But thank you guys so much for joining us on this journey of Stan Lee,
Thank you,
remembrance,
guys.
loving him.
Thank y'all so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank y'all, Stan.